All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another session with Enstar Technologies. Today we are going to be talking about high demand DBA skills. As always, we have our wonderful Dr. Namdi here with us to, dissect any questions that we have. So talking about high demand DBA skills, what employers are looking for, what skills are important to stand out in the job market. So let's start. When we say high demand DBA skills, what are we talking about? Over to you.
Well, yeah, so when we talk about high demand DBA skills, right? Database administration on its own is a high demand um career or career path, right? But inside of it, there are skill requirements that make you stand out. As a job seeker, as somebody who is looking to get into the market, and most importantly, to more than likely the person who is watching this, they are probably trying to understand what the expectations, what the job market is looking for, right? Or what make sure, or what do I need to know to be successful? Our goal with this series and these conversations that might seem a bit more technical is we want to get you mentally prepared so that as you're going through your journey and your transition process, you are clear on what you're trying to get out of the journey, right? If you're doing a training, for example, maybe you are a student at Enstar, what are the things I want to make sure that I leave this place with, to guarantee that I'm successful going. So when we talk about those high demand skills, what are the skills a database administrator must have or have to have to should be in high demand, basically, that'll help you stand out in the job market, help you be, it's a crowded market, so that's another thing. There's a lot of people who are, let me not say it's crowded, but there are a lot of people who might not be qualified but are vying for these jobs. How do I separate myself, right, from the pack and make myself a preferred candidate for employers, make myself a safer bet. That prospective employers, a safe bet for them to take when they don't feel like I'm taking a big risk or a big swing on this person. So that's kind of what we're talking about.
Uh, Okay, so talking about high demand DBA skills, and you had explained this. So what would you say is, let's start with the first skill. What is the first skill that comes to mind when talking about the high demand skills that are needed for database administration?
All right. So anybody following us last week, we talked about non-technical skills. So I'm going to skip that part completely. In terms of there are non-technical soft skill requirements that need to be in place. If not, you are not going anywhere, right? So I'm going to focus more on the technical aspect of it now, right? What are some of those higher, significantly important skill set requirements that you need or you must have to stand out? Um, and there's so many of them. I don't know where to start from. I don't know which one in particular I'll go with as the most important. But I'll just start from like must have to go in. There are certain things, if you cannot speak to them, you're not eligible to be in the workforce. You're not qualified to be a DBA, right? There are some database fundamentals that you have to know. So things around configuration and installation, right, will be the barest foundation, for anybody looking to explore a career in database administration. One of the things you're almost likely always going to do is around that installation and configuration part. So installation meaning you're implementing a new software or the database software, right, on a database server. Okay, so when we talk about database administration, database management, and let's go back a few steps, right? We are helping businesses as database administrators. We use our skill sets to help businesses efficiently manage their critical data, right? By ensuring it's safe, the right people have access to it, it's properly secured in case of any events that are unplanned. All of those things. Those are kind of like our scope of work. And we do it using this software platforms we call relational database management systems, right? Database platforms. So when people say Oracle or SQL Server, MySQL, these are all database platforms. for you to use these platforms, they have to be installed on a server that becomes a database server, right? A standard server sitting by itself is just a big computer, right? A server is a computer for anybody who has figured it out. The server is not a special kind of device. A server is a computer, but it is the reason why it's called a server is because it is running specific services for a particular purpose, right? A Windows server is running certain Windows functions to manage, Windows operating systems, Windows functionality. A database server is running database software, right? And using that to manage database software. So installation means you are installing that database software. You are basically taking that server and making it into a database server by installing and doing configuration. So it's a foundational skill, right? In fact, you're going to get opportunities, get jobs where the expectation for that role is you are doing installation and configuration. You're going to see jobs, especially contract jobs, where it's maybe doing database migration or something. And all they're looking for is somebody who is coming in to do installation, configuration. They give you a sort of parameters that's relevant for the environment, and your job is to implement, install and configure, and that's it. So I'll say that is where your skill set begins, right? If you're going to an interview, there are certain fundamental type questions they will ask you around this, right? They ask you for things, let's say, if using SQL Server terminology now, recovery models or system databases. Those are like, it's the beginning of the stuff. You have to know these things. If you don't know these things, there's no how many are talking about performance tuning, right? Right? There's no how many are having a conversation about, profile and all that good stuff. And so it starts with I'll start with installation and configuration, because then when you're doing jobs like database migration, this is the core skill. Those configuration initial, this is a core skill. While it's foundational, it really is super important, because everything we do, every database server is managed starts from there. So that will be the first one I'll start with. Is you have to take that part seriously. And people think it's okay, just what's the big deal in running, doing installation? Well, there are nuances you have to be aware of, right? There are, you need to know why you are checking each box, right? And what's the impact of not checking that box would be, or checking a different box. You have to have an understanding, because that's how you provide guidance to businesses, to organizations that are paying you good money. That will be how you serve them. So yeah, I'll stop there for that one.
Okay, well, I was going to ask a question regarding that, just to make it more important for the audience. What's the importance of this software that a DBA would be installing, and what part do they play in the business that make it so like of a demanding skill that all DBAs need to have?
Well, the software themselves, I mean, like I said, it's these database management platforms or systems. They are specialized software. If you don't have them, you can't manage you can't do the database administration, right? You can't administer any databases without SQL Server running, without Oracle running, without MySQL running. So that is the first thing you're doing, is the installation. Now, how I do installation will be based on what that server functionality is. What's the scope of work that this server will be handling? That will determine, the settings and parameters I select as part of my installation process. And so that's why it's critical, because there is no database management or administration. There is no database. The software is what makes it possible. That's why it's super critical. That's where it all begins. Is let's figure out how to manage let's figure out how to even make the software come in place to now start administering anything. So yeah.
Okay. So what will be the next skill? We talked about software installation, and so what will be the next important skill for a database administrator?
There are a bunch of skills in between this and the one I'm going to mention.
Okay.
configuration. The next one, I feel like people need, you're going to almost always, especially if you're working in a support type role, is security and access management, right? Security is huge for us, right? When I talk about security, the first thing that might come to your mind is hackers and, Russian hackers is an election year, so the popular terminology. It's hackers, it's unauthorized access, those type of things. And it's not that fun for us, right? It is in terms of we're not doing again, I always think about the hackers in the movies that they're doing it's
Yeah.
our own kind of like security it's a lot of configuration, but also a lot of policy, right? A lot of this is the standard approach, or this is how we go about doing support or doing security. For some, it might be you working with the organization to put um, policy in place on how security is done, how access management is done, on how to grant people access. But for us, security just really means ensuring people have the access they need to do their job, right? Ensuring people have just enough access. And then, of course, if you are not supposed to be in this database, you shouldn't have access to be in there. Um, but for the most part, at the database level of security, we're looking at, hey, Femi, you are a database engineer, so you have full access. Or now you're not a database engineer, you're an accountant. You just need to see reports, and I'm giving you access to do just reports. You work in some this in the business, and all you need is specific data. And so when you sign into this database, how do I give you just that data? Do I need to give it to you in a dashboard, or do you need to be connecting directly to Management Studio, right? And so those that's security from our end, right? It's granting access to new users. We get those requests where, oh, somebody just joined the team. This is the development team or the analysis, data analyst or reporting guys, and you get this request to grant them access, making sure you are understanding what their role is going to be, and ensuring they're getting access, whether the right way. Are they going to be part of a group, or are you giving them access individually? Right. Again, understand exactly what they're trying to do. Is this a one-off task, or is this like their job entails them having access constantly? Right. Some people might just have something they need to go check. Well, what's the policy around that? Making sure that's followed. All of that. So there's some administrative work involved, and there's the doing the thing aspect as well. A lot of security is policy, like I said, either designing policy or just making sure it's up to par and it conform to. It's coordinating with my team and saying, hey, we can't allow people to keep doing this. Like I've been in positions and roles where if I did a job where one of the first tasks I was put on was to audit the entire database infrastructure and look for who had administrative privileges, who was not supposed to, right? And then we started revoking. Once I did that, I did a spreadsheet, I made a list of all of this, and there were so many accounts. Considering when I was brought onto that role, I was the only full-time database engineer. How there was many people with administration, but the thing was, when the company was a lot smaller and everybody was everything, right? People were wearing multiple hats, and so if you needed to go to the database to do something, you were given access to go do it, right? It didn't matter because everybody was doing, but now the business had grown to a place where there needed to be some level of order in how things were done, how access was managed. And so when I came on and I was auditing, I had to identify who had access, and then not just sysadmin privileges, but I needed to see what they owned. Because let's say somebody has sysadmin privileges, for example, and again, for anybody listening, sysadmin, highest level of access. Nobody should have that except you as the database administrator, because if they have access, I can do anything within the database infrastructure. So people who have sysadmin access, you want to see what do they own, right? And then change ownership there first before you take away the access. Because if you take away their access, let's say they created a job and you took away their access, the job will start failing because the access that was driving that service is no longer doesn't have the permissions again. So it was a very extensive project to do. Just auditing and then figuring out how this, ownership of objects and everything, and right. But that's how critical. So that's when we talk security, is this kind of things, ensuring conformity to security, standard, ensuring that there's a protocol in place being followed, there's policies being followed and adhered to, and then making sure that even in situations where maybe there's no policy that covers a unique situation, you're having adequate conversations to ensure that decisions are being made correctly. So that will be the next one. That'll be my number two skill, that I'll highlight for anybody exploring a career in digital administration. Yeah.
Okay. Question on that. So what would you say are the main, let's say, for someone who lacks the security skill, how would that affect for a DBA that lacks these skills? How would that affect the business or business operations?
They'll make mistakes that are costly, right? If you're, let's say you're in a position as a DBA, like our role is so sensitive. If I give access to somebody and they make a mistake, right? So I'll give an example, right? Let's say since you made to have this conversation, let's say you're a reporting analyst. So your job is to run reports. Typically, you should have ability to run reports and that's it. But you lay your hands on a script, that will drop a table in there somewhere. Maybe it's a complex thought procedure that's doing a funky thing, but you as a curious student who is just trying to figure out, like, what, and there's no policy that bans you from like running this thing against any database or maybe even a critical development service. And so you take this script and just let me see what will happen. Because it looks exactly like what you run every day to get your report. If I've done my job properly, that script will fail when you run it because it will tell you don't have access to do that, right? You will not be able to successfully complete that. But if I don't do my job well and you have more access than you need to have and you run the script, guess what will happen? Now you're deleting a critical table. Now the business is losing revenue or an application is going down or something drastic is going on, right? That's the consequence of not following or doing things the right way. Right? It can be a case of where I was just being lazy, right? And you made a request like, hey, I need access to this table, or I need access to do this. And instead of me going and doing my due diligence, you said you wanted to view plan, look at the execution plan for a particular database, and I don't know what permission to give you. Instead of me going to do the research, I'm like, you know what? I'll just give you full access. Right? People do that. Instead of doing my research and doing my due diligence, I give you full access. And then you now realize that, oh, dang it, I can do all things, right? And suddenly, maybe you have a script that's urgent that you've been trying to get the DBAs to run, but the other DBA on the team has been delaying you, right? Because they are following due process, but now I gave you access. What are you going to do? Like, you're wasting my time. I have a delivery to go run it. But maybe that guy is delaying because there's something they found or they have questions, right? I've ruined everything. And God forbid there's a consequence out of that. There's a bug, there's a mistake. There's something that messes up the data integrity. It's not going to be on you. It's going to be on the DBA. It's going to be on me, right? And so that's the consequence of not doing it right, of not being, not being security conscious, of not adhering to security policies. So security is so critical. Beyond the external, the hackers and external intrusion, it's really about making sure that things are done in order. And we were not able to do that if if we don't do our jobs, it's going to be chaos. And I've seen chaos. No, I've seen chaos, and we don't want to be chaos. Those environments are the ones where they call you by 2 a.m. in the morning for to look at because somebody has done.
Wow.
right? Yeah, that's part of the, I guess part of the consequences is chaos. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what will be the next skill that DBA needs to have? We say security and then we'll say installation and
All right. So
software.
this next one, I will rank it among the top at this point. Now we're getting into, and this one is I'll say backup and restore. So I'll classify it under disaster recovery. There's more to disaster recovery than backup, obviously, but disaster recovery, but specifically knowing how to understanding backup and backup strategy clearly.
Okay,
Because
wait, I'll question. When we say disaster recovery, I'm talking about hurricane, tornado, earthquake.
yes,
What does
exactly that, that and more, right? Because, and that's a good question, right? I'll give you, and the reason why I'll give you an example. We were out here in Georgia, right? In Atlanta, Atlanta is not necessarily a coastal city, okay, but there are aspects of Georgia that are bordered by the water. So you see when we get those hurricanes and these things, there's some places that get the flood. If you have a company in those areas, there's data centers, all of that, it could get flooded. Um, if you are a client of a company that's retail, you're not necessarily interested in, I'm based out in California, there's, or let me not say California because they get their own issues there, but let's say you are based out somewhere uh, in DC, right? You're in DC, in Philadelphia, one of those cities where life is just normal. And you're not I want to place an order. I don't care whether rain fell or hurricane happened, right? So it's important for us when that happens. How do we get back? Does my business shut down if a hurricane happens, right? If a fire breaks out, if there's a terrorist attack, right? So there are some businesses after 9/11 that never came back because there's no disaster recovery plan. Disaster recovery is a wider concept than the database itself. But within database, we have our own, we have to also have disaster recovery conversations. So it's super critical when we have to plan for that. I've been in that situation where, again, I lived in a coastal city before I moved to Atlanta. And whenever we'd have these hurricanes and hurricane watches, I know what I had to do, right? With getting external storage and everything. And then you hold, like I had to physically, because we didn't have the infrastructure to, it wasn't a big facility that had unlimited money. I had to physically hold the backup, right? I had to hold the drive
Wow.
and take them with me. Because tomorrow, business, people are going to come back to this business and need and require services. I can't carry the server, but I can make sure that right? So that's disaster recovery. It's measures, how do I ensure that when there's a disaster or stuff happens, um, we can continue serving our end users, our clients, um, or we can at least not keep continue serving them, but we can come back online promptly to continue doing business. That's that's disaster recovery, right? One of the core skills within database administration that we use to implement disaster recovery will be backup. And so for a database administrator, if you don't understand backups, you're not ready to be a database administrator, right? That's a key. That's how you have peace of mind because eventually accidents will happen. That's a disaster. Mistakes will be made. What I just described previously, where somebody runs a script that they shouldn't run and messes something up, how do I come back from that? Your backup. If you have proper backup, proper backup strategy, you're likely going to be able to come back from mistakes. So you can a backup will keep your job. Doing backup, a proper backup strategy will help you keep your job. You will sleep better at night as a database person because you know that worst case scenario, we can revert back to a particular state, a particular point in time, using our backup. And so it's It's super important. It's a super important skill. Understanding backups, the backup types, the backup strategy, um, even backup um, infrastructure. So I've seen people, and this is the are you hearing an echo from your end? I'm getting an echo from.
Yeah, I'm hearing some echo. It's still clear though.
Okay, yeah, I was just streaming. Yeah, but like I've seen one of the really a few. This is not a lot of database administrators that I've met, but I've met a few guys who have an in-depth understanding of storage, like to like RAID and flash storage and configuration of storage for backup. That's you going to distinction level in database administration, right? Because you're going way off your lane to understand this. So now you're able to implement what's faster storage, you know, all of that. You're not just concerned about space and size. You're concerned about RAID. I'm concerned about spindle and speed and all of those things. And that's what sets you apart. But understanding backups, backup types, backup infrastructure, um, recovering from backups, and all other concepts around disaster recovery is going to set you apart. It's a requirement, and the people who do it, who understand it clearly, every certification exam you do, if you get certified, almost every interview you go for, there is a good chance of you getting some questions around, backup and, especially painting pictures of failure and how you recover using a backup. And those questions are consistent because it's going to happen. If you do this long enough, you're going to have to use backup to save your job one of these days. So yeah, that will be my next skill.
Okay. Okay. So backup and recovery, software installation, security. What other skills are important?
Next up, I'll go. And again, let me say I'm not ranking this in order because all of them have their significance. Or maybe I am. I just because one. But this next one, I'm not sure because I'm struggling. The next two I have in mind. I'm trying to see how I rank them. Next one, I'm going to give. Since we're along the lines of disaster recovery, I'll give high availability. The next, um, because it's also there's a disaster recovery component in high availability, right? Being able to continue serving your clients, something just being available regardless. Like you go on Amazon, 12 a.m., 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. Right now, it's live. Amazon never shuts down. Amazon never puts a banner, we are down for maintenance. Amazon serves the globe. People are using Amazon across the globe. Amazon, Alibaba, are you like you? These guys are up all the time. Mind you, none of these servers are floating in the sky. None of these, websites are hosted in space or hosted in heaven. They are on physical servers in a location on web servers. So that means at some point those servers have to be shut down. They have to go for maintenance. They have to be rebooted. Somebody will make a mistake and unplug them, probably get fired. But right, there is something that would make that server unavailable. Yet for 1 second, Amazon has never been offline. They've never sent me an email to tell me we're working on your service, right? So it's super important. High availability just means how do we ensure that even when there is an outage, we can still keep serving our clients, that business can continue, that we can keep our database up, right? And so that's high availability. And that's something that we need to have a mastery of. There's so many ways that you can do high availability within your database management, depending on the tool or platform that you are, you're using. So I'm not going to get specific since we are Microsoft and SQL Server guys, but the same concept exists across the board. Um, but that's something you have to have a level of mastery and command because again, most businesses want uptime. right? Even when things go wrong. So being able to implement solutions to ensure that even when stuff happens, just like you're building a standby generator for your business, you're creating that standby basically to where we can continue serving clients. We can Amazon our, well, how do we Amazonify our environments so that when things happen, we can still keep serving our clients because that's how we keep making money. That's how this business stays afloat. While we are solving the issue, we still want to be able to do business. That's high availability, and I'll put that as it's a top three, skill in that, for a successful, database administrator. So we were talking about, high demand skills. High availability is a high demand skill for sure. Database administrators. Yep.
Okay, so high availability. I would say what area of the business does high availability affect that makes it very important?
I mean, it affects the whole thing because it's about the database, right? So what are you making highly available? The database, the data. So every data that the business is using is better served being part of a high availability configuration, right? It's your hospital. We need to be able to access patient records promptly. We need to access our, what do you call them? Our EMRs, the data backend behind it on time and promptly. So if that we can't have access to that, if because something went wrong and we don't have a standby, guess what we can do? See patients. Well, we can't see patients. What can we do? Make money, right? So you see how that cascading effect. So all aspects of the business kind of slow down. If staying in that, if nurses can access that record, maybe they can't do their job. Maybe the database directory where test results are uploaded to, lab tech can't do their job. So all of this, and we can't, the way 2024, you're not manual, you're not turning back to manual in a fingers, snap of a finger like that. We are too deep into the technology dependency right now that it's not where we can say, you know what, it's not working, let's do manual. That ship has, I feel like that ship is on its way to a land unknown at this point. So it's all aspects of the business. There's no exception to who can be impacted, especially if you're in touch of using the data in any capacity. And I'll say that's super important to to think about. I'll almost say, I want to say this, and this is it's not necessarily a bold take, but I want to say any organization doing database administration in some capacity where they have a database administrator has to have some HA solution in place. Yeah, there has to be some semblance. It might not be the most complex or complicated, but there's always, and I'm thinking through all of the companies I've consulted with or worked for, every one of them. Some have more complex, solutions, more elaborate. Let me not say more elaborate solutions in place. But even the ones that are bare, some have the best, but there's always something. At least for those most critical servers, most critical data, more critical databases, business sensitive, business critical databases, there's always some HA type configuration in place for them.
Okay. Now, does HA occur before disaster recovery or after disaster recovery?
How do you mean?
I want to say, is HA, because the way you've explained it is having databases or data being available. So is it a solution for disaster recovery, for when disaster recovery happens?
No, so they can work together. There are certain HA solutions within your database platforms that can also serve as disaster recovery, right? Based on how, without really going into a whole
Too
class.
technical.
Class. There are certain, solutions, high availability solutions that can also double as disaster recovery because they are giving you that backup, like, that, hey, we've made arrangements to ensure that we can reboot, we can restart, we can reset, after a failure. And for high availability, the goal is we don't want to go down at all. So, like, even though that disaster has happened, we want to keep going. We don't want to go offline. With disaster recovery, it's just me, I don't want to be down for long, right? I want to be able to, okay, disaster has happened, we want to be back in no time. High availability is I don't want to go down at all. I want to, even though disaster is happening, um, I want to still sell you I need you to come and purchase your shoes from my site, right? Even if the disaster happened and our data center just caught fire. So that's the difference in the two. So there's no order in which they happen. It just comes down to businesses will implement solutions based on their need, right? If I'm a company that doesn't require 24/7 accessibility, right? Let's say you work for if you work for a retail company, for example, 24/7 availability is important because I don't control buying habits. Somebody can wake up and their craving is to order something online, right? There's a boyfriend somewhere who their girlfriend is trying to break up with them if they don't buy them a gift, right? So it might be 1 a.m. and this guy doesn't have a choice but to jump on your site. I can't afford to be down at that time. I need that boyfriend. I need to help that man save his relationship. Right? So shout out to that. So for that's DBA. The next time you're in that situation, talk a DBA, right? Because they don't know what we do for them. They are the some heroes of marriages and relationships. That's okay left on. Well, see, this work is real life, right? There's real life applications to what we do, right? Tell me. So but if you work for, say, construction company, right? Maybe landscaping where we don't necessarily, we are taking orders over the phone, we are doing it, we don't have to be online 24/7 for business to happen, right? We will still do business even if we are not online. The expectation, the disaster recovery approach they take or the high availability solution they implement is going to match their business need, right? For somebody who needs to be online 24/7, is Shopify, Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, Uber, right? Lyft, those are 24/7. They have to be up. So the high availability configuration is the investment there is going to be different from a retail, not retail, a landscaping company, maybe even law firm, those type of companies. Because law firm, again, you're going to call. You might not do all of your things online. There might be an online process, but if you pick up the phone and call, somebody's going to pick up and book and ask you questions. Even if you do your online, you're not consulting online. I don't care how, like, I want somebody, I'm going to try to sue somebody. I can't be answering to a chat robot. Right? Okay, who did they punch you in the face? Like, well, no, I'm trying to get some money here. So those businesses are not dependent 100% on being up all the time online, right? And so somebody can be taking those records and manually inputting them into an app that funnels into the database. So that's a different. So the way they do high availability for that kind of company, is going to be different, right? Their focus might be more disaster recovery. We can't afford to lose any client record because we don't know when litigation, somebody can come back and say, hey, 20 years ago, you judged this case. So now their concept, about storage and disaster recovery is going to be different from their mindset is different, their approach is different. The business needs will drive the solutions the business implements, especially regarding disaster recovery and high availability.
Okay. All right. Any more solutions? Any more skills? Any more skills that are important?
All right, so I'll drop to there's so many. I think we should do a part 2 of this, and but I'll talk about the other two because we don't choose these topics. We have a wonderful member that decides what we're going to talk about. The last two I'll mention are I'll say performance tuning is the next one. Um, I'll highlight. I'll talk about performance tuning. That's you have to, and performance tuning just means you're making tweaks to ensure you're getting the best performance out of your database, right? So when people go on the website and they're interacting with your data, right? Interacting with data meaning they're doing transactions, they're placing an order, they are filling out the form. What's that experience like, right? Not the UI experience, we don't control that. But they're trying to retrieve data, they're doing a search, they're trying to find something. That's you, that's the data, right? Is your data indexed properly to where it's easy to find stuff, right? Is that, if I'm trying to get status of my claim and I'm looking up my case number, am I getting things quickly or immediately, right? So those are all performance related questions. And performance is it's a very big deal for us, for a lot of companies, because of the day and time we live in. It's about speed, it's about user experience, um, it's about reliability. So there's performance kind of always has a way of predicting reliability. If I come on your site and it's slow, I'm not able to get around, and it's not my internet, I start wondering whether your website is compromised. I start wondering whether your platform is safe, right? I start wondering whether you are legitimate. Literally, that's what people do. They base legitimacy on website speed, right? And so imagine where it's not the website's fault, it's the database sitting behind that's dragging. Those become, and that happens often. So performance tuning, performance monitoring, I'll put that up there as one of the top skills. And you see this, during interviews, there's always questioning around, performance and improving speed and identifying reason for slowness, and your approach. Those are very consistent conversations and questions you'd have to answer when you do interviews, because of how critical it is to the day-to-day operations of your business. Now, some companies don't have that as a need, but majority of the time you would see top questions. You Google top questions, you will get in a DBA. There's always going to be like a performance tuning question in the mix. Yeah. So that'll be the last one I'll talk about. I think we can.
Okay. So we talk about performance tuning, security, availability, disaster recovery, installation. This might sound like very heavy words, like new people. So in terms of learning these skills, how would you categorize the ease of learning and adapting to these skills that are needed for someone coming in?
They're not, just the same. We've been preaching this, last few weeks now, right? It's going to take investment in time to completely comprehend and understand these concepts. They are very important concepts, and like this database administration is what it is because of these different things I've named, right? Businesses hire database administrators to come do these things we talked about. Right? When we talk about managing business critical data, making sure businesses are, uptime is up, it's you're doing the things we talked about for organizations. So go figure, you're helping a company not lose millions every day. You're helping a company not get sued by implementing disaster recovery. You're helping this company ensure that they are making millions. You're helping them make millions because you're ensuring that they're up, right? How much is a Walmart.com making every day? You doing your part and ensuring uptime is in place and high availability. You're doing your part and helping them make that money, right? So that's, if you think of it like that, how much time do you think is worth investing in learning how to do these things? So there's a level of time commitment required to completely understand, and to click and do these things mostly are easy, right? Just the clicking, and where the work is in taking time to understand the concepts, right? You'll see most interviews you go for, nobody's going to give you a computer to do anything because that part is easy. Computer work is straightforward, it's easy, anybody can do it. But I don't think anybody can do this work, right? Just how many people have the patience to put their head down and understand the concepts and practice it over and over again and see all the possible scenarios, that's where you stand out. That's where knowledge becomes skill. It's, we're talking about high demand skill. For you to take this and it becomes a skill, you have to have done it and done it and done it and understand it inside out. The people that turn this knowledge and information into skill are the ones that stay on top, right? Are the ones who go from employer to employer. They don't like a job, they don't like the boss, they leave because they know they'll get back in the market and they'll be fine. So it's not difficult to learn, but it takes time, right? It's important that we have a good understanding of, it's going to take time. Let me put it that way. For us at Enstar Technologies, we are very intentional about working with our students because people learn at different um, pace, right? People are from different backgrounds. Most of people coming to us are coming from non-technical backgrounds trying to get into this realm. So we are cognizant of that in our approach to learning. But we also will not paint an unrealistic picture for you that you can just come in and, just not do anything and get this. No, it requires some putting your head down and doing the work. But people who do that ultimately go on to be successful. So yeah.
Okay, that is all for today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Many last words for the audience listening.
Yeah, so as usual, thank you for everybody for watching and hanging out with us, whether you're watching in real time. We have 5 people watching right now, which is great. Thank you. We always get people watching us live.
You're welcome. Thank
And
you.
And then for people who are watching afterwards, thank you as well. A lot of these things gets almost last one got like 80 views, so that's incredible. And people are watching it. And for everybody again, if you're exploring a career in tech, we definitely recommend database administration, not just because we teach it, but because we know the value of it. And the opportunities there. If you again do some research and see for yourself, but it's one of those. It's its own lane. It's not competing with any. It's not competing with cybersecurity or any of the other guys. There's a lot of prospect there, and if you are serious about getting started, you can still join. We just started a new cohort over the past weekend, so we still have this week to take anybody who wants to join. So if you're still on the fence. The train is moving. The next cohort is next quarter. So if you want to join this one, and so that the goal is people in this cohort want to go through that. By the time we're wrapping up the year into the new year, you should be getting your first job at that time based on stats. If that's your goal, then we invite you, book a call with us when the captions go or send a message to us. Reach out to us on any of our accounts. Our details should be out somewhere. Reach out and let's get you in, and so we can have you in class this Saturday. Classes are convenient. It's in a nice community of people. And we do our best to hold your hands, and then you get to be part of this cult at some point eventually, right? And ask your question. So we don't just help you during the class, we also work with you beyond the time, right? Beyond the class, we have our support sessions weekly, but only ones doing that level of volume of support call. So that's my message. But thank you again for everybody, the 5 people watching right now and the people watching in the future. We're grateful, and we truly appreciate you taking out some time to be with us. Gratitude.
All right. All right, people. See you next time.